Hi, Titans. Thank you so much for joining us today. My name is Hallie Hunt. I'm the Dean of Students here at Cal State Fullerton, and you are here for our Friday afternoon webinar series where we answer the most pressing questions that you are sending to us at the Dean of Students office. And today I'm really excited to have a presentation on smart spending that will be given by the financial aid. You have been asking a lot of questions about how do you handle your finances during this pandemic? And I'm really hoping that this will help answer those questions for you. So again, thank you for joining. This is being recorded. And if you have friends who are unable to attend today, they'll be able to watch the recording later when we post it to our website. So without further ado, I would like to introduce my colleague and the panelist for today. He is Marco Mendoza. He is a client services counselor in the Office of Financial Aid. He's got a lot of really great information to share with us today.
Hi, thank you for having me. Thank you for having us from the Office of Financial Aid to come and share some of this knowledge with you and with the students so that we can all be a little more educated moving forward.
Absolutely. Thank you for spending your Friday afternoon, the day before a 3-day weekend with us, helping to educate our Titans. So Marco, we've had a lot of students contact us saying that they are living on a reduced income or they've lost the source of their income during this pandemic, and a lot of questions about how do they stretch their dollars and make their financial aid last throughout the entire semester. And so I'm hoping, well, I know that you're going to be talking about those things today, and I'm really excited to hear from you. So thank you so much, and I'm going to turn it over to you.
Thank you. Thank you. So during this presentation, my goal is, again, to better educate students on the financial aid awarding process, their awards, and hopefully take a little bit of a few tips on how to budget those dollars throughout the semesters and the upcoming academic year. And so in our next slide, we're able to see that there are two different applications that students are able to submit. The first is the FAFSA application, which stands for the Free Application for Federal Student Aid. And this is an application that is available for anybody who is a U.S. citizen or a legal permanent resident. And the second application is the California DREAM Act application. Now, this is an application that is available for anybody who meets the Assembly Bill 540, which most commonly known as the AB 540, which is a California law that allows students who previously weren't eligible to pay in-state tuition fees to now do so. Now, the student population. So if you believe this is an application that you may be eligible for, we do recommend submitting this so we can determine what it is that we can offer you in terms of financial aid for the upcoming academic year. Again, these are the two applications we are able to offer students. And in the next slide, we're able to take a look at the deadline. Now, March 2nd is a priority deadline that we have every calendar year, every academic year. And the reason for this deadline is that it helps us determine where we can prioritize the limited funding that we're given by the federal and state government. And we want to be able to award students the maximum amount of money that they're eligible for every academic year. So we have different communication campaigns as well as outreach campaigns on campus to better educate students and encourage them to submit their FAFSA or DREAM Act applications on time, which again is March 2nd. And even if students haven't submitted their applications by the March 2nd deadline, we do encourage them to do so. We're now in May, and if you haven't done so already, please do so. But just know that when students do submit it after the deadline, there are a few different things there are a few different, I guess you can say, consequences that occur due to missing this deadline. And then the next slide, we're able to see how it is that financial aid is awarded. And so one of the things we look at is what we call the EFC, which stands for the Estimated Family Contribution. And this is essentially a dollar figure, a number that is derived from all of the information that you provide on the FAFSA or the CD application, which is the California DREAM Act that we like to call the CD application. And this application will take a look at things like income reported, family size, how many people are in your family's household, any untaxed income, as well as any the amount of students that are in your household that are in college. So when all this information is inputted into the application, we are able to see a dollar figure that really determines a lot of what types of grant funding and even loan funding you are eligible for from both the federal and state government. We also, again, look at the completion of the application, both the FAFSA and California DREAM Act application. Once again, March 2nd is a priority deadline. And recently we had something called the document deadline. Document deadline refers to something I'm going to elaborate a little more on in just a bit, but it refers to a deadline for a priority deadline for documents that are requested by our office for the purpose of verifying accuracy of the information that's reported on the applications. And lastly, we do have to abide by a number of different rules and regulations that are set by the California Student Aid Commission, which is a state agency that essentially awards things like the Cal Grant and Middle Class Scholarship, as well as the Department of Education, U.S. Department of Education. So funding is limited every year, and we have to abide by a number of different things to remain compliant so that all of our students can continue to receive financial aid for years to come. And in our next slide, we are able to see, once again, the things I just referenced to, which are the deadlines and our documents. So recently we had something called the financial aid verification document deadline. And that deadline was May 8th, which was about 2 weeks ago. And it was a priority deadline for our students to submit any documents that we placed on their Student Center's to-do list. And there are some students out there who might still have some documents pending. So I want to let you all know that if you still have a document that's pending, anything like a household size verification form, a tax filing verification form, to please submit them. And if you have submitted them, to please allow us to be able to process these forms so we can take them off of your to-do list and then verify the information to determine what it is that we can offer you in terms of grant and loan funding for the upcoming academic year. Why do we require these forms? It really comes down to remaining within compliance of the different, again, federal and state government requirements and rules and regulations that are placed on not just our office, not just CSUF, but colleges and universities across the country. So again, May 8th was a priority deadline for students to submit documents, but we still encourage them to submit them if they haven't done so already. And in our next slide, we're able to see a little more about, as I mentioned earlier, some of the consequences that may occur when students miss these deadlines. Right now, it takes us about 6 to 8 weeks to process any documents that have been submitted into our office. So if you're one of those students that within the last few weeks has been submitting documents, please, we thank you for doing so, and we thank you for being patient as we work through what we would consider to be one of the busiest times of our academic year and our calendar year. Because we're in the middle of processing all of the different documents and verifying what it is we can offer our students for the upcoming academic year. But for any students who do miss this, we do have to let you know that missing this deadline only delays your financial aid award packaging, and it could potentially result in disenrollment for any unpaid fees in the fall. So it's important for students to submit these documents, and it really just highlights the importance of being what we consider a priority 1 student, which is a student who submits the FAFSA or CDA application by March 2nd and their documents by the May 8th deadline. Again, missing deadlines, it can disqualify you from certain types of aid. So we want all of our students to meet these deadlines for not just this year, but many, many years to come. And in our next slide, we are able to take a look at some of the different types of aid that we can offer students. So earlier I mentioned things like the California Student Aid Commission that grants the Middle Class Scholarship or the Cal Grant, and I want to go over them just a bit in our next slide here. And under the federal portion of our grants, we have things like the Pell Grant and the Federal Work Study. And both of these are grants that can be applied towards your overall cost of attendance and are determined by your estimated family contribution on the FAFSA application and under the state portion of the grants that we can offer, we have things like the State University Grant, the Cal Grant, and the Middle Class Scholarship. All 3 of these grants are grants that can be applied towards your tuition portion of your tuition and fees, but I do need to highlight that students can't receive all 3. They can only receive 1 because they are considered a tuition fee paying award, and students are only eligible for 1 at a time. And in our next slide, we want to go over the loans that students are eligible for. For the majority of our students, which tend to be undergraduate students, the 2 most common loans that we are able to award are the subsidized and the unsubsidized loans. Both of these loans are loans that do not have to be repaid until 6 months after they graduate or fall below 6 units of enrollment. They both have a fixed interest rate. The interest rate was recently announced for the upcoming academic year, and it's 2.75. It's actually the lowest I've seen it, and most of my colleagues have seen it in a very long time, if not ever. And the other type of loan that most undergraduate students are potentially eligible for is a Parent Plus loan. Now, the Parent Plus loan is a loan that students, that the parents of a student have to apply for on studentaid.gov, and they have to be approved for. But that is the interest rate there on our screen, 5.3. And lastly, for anybody who is a California DREAM Act applicant, you may be eligible for what is called the DREAM loan. This is a loan that mirrors a subsidized loan in the sense that it has the same interest rate that is also subsidized, but this one is only for the California DREAM Act applicants. And then our next slide. We want to make sure that we educate our students on the different requirements that are necessary in order for them to receive the funds that they borrow on not just their portal, but through the student aid website. And so before a student can receive any of the loans that they borrow on their portal, on their CSUF portal, they have to go ahead and submit what we call, or what the U.S. Department of Education calls the loan entrance counseling and the master promissory note. The loan entrance counseling is more of an online tutorial that is meant to better educate you on the loans that you borrow. And the master promissory note is more of a contract that you sign with the U.S. Department of Education, where you essentially state that you promise to pay these loans back. And lastly, the other type of loan that students at times do borrow at our school and at any other university are what we call the alternative loans or the private loans. These are loans that students can borrow with whatever bank or credit union, whatever lending institution they want, but we do need to let them know that their interest rates, their repayment periods, their overall requirements may be different than the federal loans. So we always encourage students to exhaust their federal loan options before they do go the private loan route. And so for any more information on these specific loans, we do encourage them to visit our website at fullerton.edu/financial aid, or even the studentaid.gov website, where they will find more in-detail information on these federal loans as well. And in our next slide, we're able to let students know about some of the scholarship opportunities that we have within CSUF. If you're a student who is interested in applying for scholarships, not just this year, but for many years to come, we encourage you to take a look at your portal and to type in or click on that scholarship tab that we're seeing on our screen right now. It is a tab that will educate students on the different scholarships that are applied for, that are eligible for CSUF specific students, and also any scholarships within the CSU system. So there are a lot of different scholarships available with varying deadlines. Most of them happen to be in late fall or by the FAFSA / California DREAM Act application deadline of March 2nd. So we encourage students to take a look at these upcoming scholarships in the fall, but they can still take a look to see if there's anything available for the upcoming academic year. And lastly, if you have an outside scholarship, let's say you apply for a scholarship with your local nonprofit, your local church, or anything along those lines, if you receive some scholarship funding from an outside organization, they can be applied towards your overall financial aid package. We just ask that you send that money or direct your donor to send the money to our Student Business Services office. It's one of our partners, one of our campus partners within the university that processes those scholarship checks. So the address is listed here on the screen, but they can also take a look at their address on our website. And in the next screen, we just wanted to list a few different scholarship websites that are available for students, everything from the Gates Millennium Scholarship Foundation to the Coca-Cola Scholarship Foundation. Again, there are a number of different scholarship organizations out there, not just the ones we're seeing here, but a number of different scholarship organizations and foundations that always have funding available for students who have a variety of interests and majors and educational goals. Next screen, please. Now, I think one of the most important questions students always have, especially in the coming weeks and months, is how is financial aid awarded? So we want you all to know that the first disbursement of financial aid always begins roughly a week before classes begin. And financial aid always pays out 2 weeks, every 2 weeks on a rolling basis after that first disbursement of financial aid. And for any middle class scholarship recipients, which we refer to as MCS, we want you to know that specific award typically gets awarded later in the academic year, specifically later in the semester. after what we call census, which is when we take a snapshot of all the units that students are enrolled in to determine eligibility for things like the middle class scholarship. And what are these funds used for? Where do they go? The first thing that these funds, whether it's a combination of grants, loans, or just loans, the first thing they do is that they pay for your tuition and fees. And if you are living on campus in the future, I want you to know that they will be applied towards your on-campus fees as well. And finally, if you have any fees, any grant funding or loan funding remaining after your fees have been paid, they get sent to you as either a check or to the mailing address that's listed on your student center, on your portal's student center, or via a direct deposit if you have already signed up for a direct deposit on your CSUF student center. Next, please. And as I mentioned earlier, there are a number of different rules and regulations that we have to follow in order to remain compliant with the federal government and state government. And one of those rules and regulations is what we call the satisfactory academic progress. Now, every year we have to follow and we have to monitor a number of different things to determine whether a student can continue to receive financial aid during the course of their academic year at CSUF. And one of those things is the grade point average. A student who is enrolled in an educational program for at least 2 academic years must have a minimum GPA of a 2.0. But for students who are within that 2-year that I just mentioned, there are a slightly lower GPA, cumulative GPA requirements that are posted on here: 1.5 after your second term and 1.7 after your third term for your grade point average. The second thing that we monitor is what we call PACE. And PACE refers to all the units that you attempt compared to the units that you're completing. So the U.S. Department of Education asks that we require students to complete at least 2/3 of the units that they're attempting, the cumulative units that they're attempting, which comes out to 66.67, and we go based off of the units that are accounted for on your transcript. So please keep in mind that we're essentially asking for students to complete most of the units that they're attempting, with the specific number being a 66.67% rate. Next. Lastly, the third thing we monitor is what we call the unit cap. And what this refers to is the maximum amount of units that a student can essentially take before we have to cap them off and are no longer able to continue to award them financial aid. At CSUF, the standard time frame for completing their degree, a student's degree, is typically 120 units, but our unit cap is 180. So it's higher than the 120 unit cap that I mentioned, but we want students to know that essentially 180 is the unit cap for most the academic programs here at CSUF. And you can always take a look at these 3 things that we measure on our website under satisfactory academic progress. And for any students who may not meet the SAP requirements, we encourage them to appeal. Whenever a student doesn't meet those requirements, and we check this at the end of the spring semester, and the summer months, we let them know and we educate them via email, letting them know that they're no longer eligible because they're not meeting any of these 3 specific requirements. But we also let them know that they can appeal this decision, and they would do so by submitting a packet and following all the instructions that they get emailed. If you have any questions, or if in the coming weeks and months you receive any of these emails, you're more than welcome to contact our office for more information on this, or go on our website again to see more of the more specifics on these requirements. But when students do successfully appeal their satisfactory academic progress decision, they get placed on probation and receive financial aid for 1 semester. And their SAP, their satisfactory academic progress, gets reevaluated every semester to determine whether they can continue to receive financial aid and be placed off of satisfactory academic progress. Next slide, please. Now, one of the things we really want to touch upon during this presentation is the importance of budgeting. And the reason for that is that for any of the new students who may not be too familiar with the financial aid process, we want you to know that when you receive financial aid, you receive it in one lump sum that needs to be budgeted over the course of a semester, which is over 5 months. And this may be new for a lot of students who who may not be accustomed to receiving large amounts of financial aid after their fees have been paid. So aid is not available over the winter intersession for anybody that might be wondering. And so it's really, really important for students to budget if they are considering things like winter intersession classes. And financial aid refunds are meant to be used for educational expenses, for living expenses, and anything related to their overall cost of attendance as a CSUF student. So again, things like your rent, your parking passes, and any school supplies you may need. And when your fees and your tuition fees and any other fees that are school related get paid, students receive these refunds that are meant, again, for their educational expenses. And we really encourage students to not use them for things like vacations, like trips, or even Disney passes, since Disney is so close to CSUF. And in our next slide, we want to let you know that how we award students is based off of a budget. Every academic year, we're currently seeing the 1920 budget here, but every academic year, we have to award students based off of 3 specific budgets. And we award them based off of whether they are a commuter student, a student who lives on campus in the dorms, or who lives just off of campus in an apartment perhaps. And these 3 budgets help us determine how much financial aid we can award the student. And really these are the limits of how much we can award the student. So for this 1920 academic year, this is the budget we're seeing, with the commuter student having the lowest budget since they may not have too many room and board expenses, versus the student who lives on campus or off campus who may have to pay significantly more for their dorm or for their rent and utilities and so forth. If you've ever wondered why it is that maybe your friends who live on campus might have a little more room in their budget for financial aid, this is why. And these budgets are updated throughout the summer, and you can always take a look at them on our website. And on the next screen, we just wanted to highlight a few things that we believe might help you as you budget your financial aid, and that is that we want you to overestimate your expenses to help you always have a little bit of money left over in case you need it, to underestimate your income, to save for unexpected expenses, to pay your loans early. If you're a student who has to borrow any of the federal loans or a private loan, we encourage you to pay your loans early to avoid paying too much interest over time. We encourage you to consistently check your budget to make sure you're still within it, to make sure that you differentiate between your needs and your wants. As I mentioned earlier, we encourage students to only use their financial aid award packages and awards in general towards their educational expenses. So things like books, like your parking pass for commuting to campus, for perhaps your bus pass, or anything related to your education here at CSUF, as opposed to things that you might want but may not need, like a trip or a vacation in the spring. And always we encourage students to check in with their families to see if at times they need help, that they can check in with them and see if there's anything they can do to support each other. In our next slide. We always educate students during the fall, and especially now that they're getting admitted and currently in this cycle of having their awards reviewed for the upcoming academic year, that the financial aid process isn't a one-time thing. Financial aid is very cyclical in the sense that what you do this year has to be done the following academic year, and so forth and so on until even be thinking about it just yet. But for the upcoming 21-22 academic year, the FAFSA and California DREAM Act applications will become available in October. So if you are a student who maybe thought you just had to do your FAFSA or CD application once and you were done, we want to remind you that that is not the case. The applications become available every year in October, and the deadline is always March 2nd for every year. So it's very cyclical. We're currently, in terms of this little graph we're seeing here, we're currently in the middle of reviewing these students' financial aid eligibility, somewhere between 4 and 5, to determine what it is that we can offer students for the upcoming academic year. And in our next slide. For anybody who may have any outstanding documents, who may have documents pending on their Student Center's to-do list, there are a number of different ways that they can submit these documents. One of them is online. Last year we launched what we call the secure document submission platform, and it's a great way for students to be able to submit any documents that they have online. All they have to do is scan them as PDFs, and that's one way we can receive them. The other way is we currently have our fax, which is the number listed there, as well as mail. Students are still able to mail any documents that they have pending on their Student Center's to-do list. Again, these are documents that are in reference to us being able to verify financial aid eligibility for the upcoming academic year. And in our next slide, we want to let you all know how it is that you could potentially contact our office. Right now, we are not physically open, but we are open virtually, and we're still more than welcome to talk to students, to meet with students, and we encourage you all to reach out to us if you have any questions. We have Zoom counseling appointments available. We have phone counseling appointments available. So if you still need to contact our office, please do so. Our phone number is listed here, 657-278-3125. We still have the same hours, Monday through Friday from 8 to 5 p.m. And we're still very much answering emails at the email address listed above. In our next slide, we want to educate students about a new platform that we recently launched that allows us to communicate with students once again virtually, and that is through our Ask Financial Aid button that you see here. When you go on our website listed here, you're able to type a message, and it gets answered by one of our staff, which is a great option for our students to have. If you can't reach the phone, if you aren't able to call us during our business hours, please know that we're still able to communicate with you and to answer any of your concerns or questions virtually, and to do so within a 24-hour turnaround. And it's something we're very proud of, and we encourage all of our students, current, future, parents as well, to go ahead and take a look at if they have any questions for us. In our next slide, we just want to thank you. Thank you for your time, for listening to our presentation here, and for being able to our conversation about how to budget and how to better understand your financial aid award package. So thank you for your time. And if you have any questions, again, please feel free to contact us. Thank you. Goodbye.
Well, so Marco, I want to say thank you so much for that presentation. Titans, I heard him say a couple of things that I think are really key. One, although document submission deadlines have passed, they are still accepting them. So make sure you get those documents in so that you can get the money that will help you return to campus next year. And two, this is not something that you said, Marco, but I just want to underscore that financial aid is such a critical partner in student success. And so if you are somebody who's really been impacted by COVID, as so many of us have been, make sure that you get in touch with financial aid. They are available virtually, as you just saw, and you might be able to meet with a counselor. So please be sure to reach out if you have questions. Marco, we have been receiving a lot of questions about the CARES Act in my office, and I'm wondering if you can give a brief update on any sort of distribution that is happening and what students can expect.
Sure. And so we recently began dispersing the CARES Act funds, and we started on I want to say May 15th. So we recently started doing so. But for any specific information, we definitely encourage students to, again, reach out to us. Every student has a very specific situation in regards to what they may be eligible for, what they may be eligible for. But the good news is that we started dispersing the funds, and the students have begun to receive these funds. And I'm very fortunate and very thankful to know that we have started receiving these messages from students saying thank you for having the funds during this difficult time. But we want you to know that regardless of what's going on in regards to COVID, we're more than willing to meet with students and to answer any question regarding the CARES funds. As I mentioned, the good news is that we started dispersing the funds, and we hope to be done in very soon.
Thank you so much, Marco. So that is very good news. Money has started arriving in people's accounts, or you'll be getting checks in the mail if you don't have direct deposit and you qualify for the fund. So thank you so much on behalf of my staff and the Titan community for all that you're doing, you and your team, to help support student success. I think financial aid is such a critical partner right now, and so important. So thank you very much for this information and for spending your afternoon with us and all you do. Titans, thank you for participating and for being here today. If you have friends that need this information that we're able to attend, or if you would like to hear this again, we will be posting this webinar on our website, and that'll happen early next. Please be on the lookout for that. And otherwise, I just want to thank everybody for being here. I hope you all have a really relaxing Memorial Day weekend. It's a 3-day weekend. We're in COVID times, but still, I hope that you get to go outside and get some fresh air and enjoy your time off. Thank you, everybody, so much. Have a great weekend. Bye.